All right, everybody, what's going on? Here we are again with myself and our very own Sophia Corker, and of course, my very dear friend and brother Jamal will be on in just a few moments. But we want to get cracking tonight. Uh, as you all may know, we've been having a great time these last several weeks. We are nearing the end of the book, and I hope that you all have really enjoyed yourselves, and more than that, that you're learning and you're growing and going to the next level. Thank you. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna do something a little different tonight. I know tonight we're gonna be discussing chapter 9. Uh, is that person really on your side? The law of loyalty, and then of course chapter 10, where it talks about changing places, the law of constructive transition. So we're gonna get started with chapter 9. I'm gonna let our very own, the one and only wise one, Sophia, let her open up, and we'll begin our discussion on tonight.
All right, so this very first chapter that we're talking about, loyalty, is that person really on your side, shocked me. It shocked me. It went in a totally different direction than what I thought he was going to go in. When I first saw the title, I thought he was going to talk about, you being loyal in your most valuable relationships, and even in relationships in general, or being able to assess the value of relationships in terms of the loyalty that you find there. And he went a totally different way. Here in this chapter, he was talking most about the loyalty of leaders, the loyalty you find in your leaders as it relates to their people, and looking out for the best interest of their people. And so, I was really just shocked to find him going um, in that direction. Um, and one thing, the very first passage I think that kind of stood out to me was he said that loyalty is an incredibly powerful force for good in any relationship. In
Hmm.
contrast, betrayal is one of the most hurtful and most negative things that can happen between two people. But
Yeah,
again, that loyalty and that betrayal, he talked about it in terms of the relationship, leaders have with the people that they are to serve, not
right.
necessarily, your personal relationships. And I think that's what stuck out with me most.
Yeah. For me, it really struck a nerve because it really put a flip on my sense of loyalty.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is when you think about loyalty, normally when you think about loyalty, you think about the mutual loyalty between just two regular people, mano y mano, my friend, your friend, family. I don't know if we've ever thought about loyalty when it comes down to leadership,
Right.
meaning their loyalty to us. Because those of us who have been churched, those of us who've worked in corporate America, we've been trained.
Mhm.
The person that's not the boss, so to say, is the one that's subservient, and so the loyalty is usually coming from the bottom up, but never the
Right.
top down. But what he
Exactly.
says is, look, if you really want to have a successful relationship, regardless to what level is on, it has to be leadership, has to have a sincere loyalty to the people just as much as the people need to have a sincere loyalty to them. That's the only way that you're going to create synergy. That's the
Mhm.
only way you're going to create a successful a recipe rather of success that'll take you to the next level. Because, and really, when you think about, I think all of us have led in some areas of our lives.
Mhm.
And now it made me think back to me as a leader, be it church, work. Was I loyal, or was I committed to my own success?
Right.
You know, I think the thing that the book kind of continues to make me do. I'm
Mhm.
always looking at myself first,
Right.
That introspection, that man in the mirror is most important to me because I'm gonna be with me no matter what I do.
Hmm.
And so I think it's so important that I have to understand the position and the strength of being loyal to the people who I'm leading in any capacity. Even man, even as a mother and father, we have to make sure that we are just as committed as we're asking those who are under us to be. My kids are 5 and 3, but my thing is, I have to still have a loyalty to them.
Right.
Is my loyalty to them? Uh, hey, don't act up because you're making daddy look bad, or don't act up because in the long run, doing the wrong thing is not gonna benefit the team.
Right.
So it's all about perspective, and I think this is on
Hmm.
a good twist on loyalty. And the one thing and I want you to go speak on this. Why do you feel he really honed in on what to look for or what to watch out for as regarding disloyalty? He really spends the bulk of chapter 9 talking about what to watch for concerning disloyalty. He doesn't even really deal with, I mean, he deals with the people that's being loyal and how you know they're loyal. But shoot, what he gives you like a few paragraphs on that?
Right. A few
The
sentences, I think.
I mean, that's it. And literally, the whole chapter
Right.
is focuses on disloyalty.
Right.
Now, I know I have my reason why, but I want to hear your reason why you think he dealt with that.
Yeah, I thought he dealt with that because a lot of times, number one, we don't focus on the loyalty of our leaders. And even as leaders, we don't really focus on our loyalty to our people. And so he had to spend some time describing that because we've never focused our attention on it. We've never I mean, I can definitely speak for myself. I've never really thought about it. I never really had it as an expectation that my leaders, should be just as loyal to me as I am to them.
Absolutely.
And so I think he spends a lot of time on describing what disloyalty from a leader looks like because we've never learned that. It's
Uh,
never been taught. You know, one thing he says is that great pain and disappointment results when you have come to trust someone in a position of leadership in your life and then discover that that person has not been loyal to you. And he's right. A lot of times we are injured or we can become bitter because we sit under people who just disappoint us, and not necessarily, like I said before, it's not that you have the expectation of their loyalty, but it still hurts when it's not there.
right.
And so he takes that time to describe what that looks like so that we'll know how to deal with it when we see it. You can't necessarily change your leaders all the time. You kind of have to deal with the leaders that you have, but you can position yourself mentally to deal with those that you recognize the signs of disloyalty in so that the pain and the disappointment won't be so great when they end up doing those things, that a disloyal leader does.
Hmm. Let's get a little risque in this
Mhm.
conversation
Mhm.
because I wanna bring up something that doesn't mention in this section of the book. And if he does, please correct me and pull a quote so we can talk about it. But
Mhm.
I don't recall him. I don't recall. I read it like 4 or 5 days ago. And I don't recall him dealing with this. How do you deal with a leader that you have to serve under,
Mhm.
but they have no loyalty to you? How do you deal with that?
Right.
Knowing they're not loyal, how do you handle that situation? You know they're not loyal. You can't leave and quit. That's just not an quitting is not an option at that point.
Right.
So how do you deal with it?
Mhm.
What do you think?
He never really told us how to deal with it. He just said deal with it. But I think he explains to us how to recognize it so that we can begin to settle within ourselves and to pray about and seek God as to how we should deal with it.
Right.
I think the scope of the issue is so broad that it's kind of hard to give people a recipe on how to deal with a disloyal person in a leadership position,
Right.
right? In every given circumstance. But he basically tells us, here are the signs, here are the characteristics, recognize it, and then once you've recognized it, deal with it. But you're right, he doesn't tell us how.
Yeah. My answer to it, to someone that has that question, I would say my answer to that would be the way that you deal with it
Mhm.
is you understand who they are now. You know that they're disloyal. You know that they're not fully committed to you, but you still have to be fully committed to the vision
Right.
because you still have your name on the line and you got to make your reputation precede itself. And on top of that, even though you're not a leader like your leader is, or like your boss, so to say, is, you still are a leader in your own right because you're a part of the kingdom of God.
Mhm.
So the best way to serve, I will use the story of David and Saul. The best way to serve is dodge what you can dodge until God brings deliverance. In the
Right.
meanwhile, David encouraged himself the whole way through. Somebody might be in this season of encouragement where they just need to encourage themselves. They don't, the boss is not going to do it. They don't care about them. All they care about is getting this job done by this timeline. Or in church, it could be the same thing. So now in church, you have a little bit of leeway because you can just, there's some things you can do in church. But as far as like your job, you have to understand that even but what David did, what kept David going, if you read any of his songs, what kept him going was always his encouragement of self. But watch this, you can't encourage yourself if you don't have enough of God in yourself to encourage yourself with. So it's very important now for us to make sure we have enough word on the inside of us, so we have a well to draw from, so that when we get thirsty, we can be that thirst can be quenched. We won't fall into depression. We won't fall into hatred or any other sins as far as envy or we get
Yeah.
becoming revengeful and things of that nature because I think it's very important that we understand how to deal with those people because the reality is there are, unfortunately, I believe that there's more bad leaders and disloyal leaders. I ain't gonna say bad, I'll say disloyal leaders than there are possibly good leaders that are really are loyal to their people. So I think the best way to handle it is to do like Saul, do like David did rather. Encourage yourself. Know that as long as you stand for God, He's gonna make a way out. There's no cookie cutter. I can't give anybody, none of us can detail, okay, you gotta do this. I would have to know the situation. But regardless of the situation, if you encourage yourself in the Lord, that's never wrong. If you need to take on your break instead of eating, turn the plate down and talk to look, get some extra strength from the Lord. Because I think dealing with disloyalty is one of the most, I believe, one of the most hurtful things
Mhm.
because oftentimes we don't find out the person is disloyal or that leader is disloyal until they've shown that they've been disloyal.
Right.
By that point, you're hurt. By that point, you're let down. By that point, you don't have the energy or the tenacity or the wherewithal within self to say, you know what, I'm gonna keep pushing because you did it because you believe in your leader. Most of us we believe in our leaders and we wanna not please them, but we want to make sure that we commit and we give something to the vision that they set forth. But when they show themselves to you, I mean, it's kind of rough. You're like, man, how am I move on? But the Bible says, "Do all things as unto the Lord." So as long as you're doing it, I guess here's my answer. My secondary answer. As long as you do what you do as unto the Lord, regardless of how disloyal your leader is, God will always be glorified in it, and you'll find yourself on top. You may even find yourself in your boss's shoes. And I think for those people too, Sophia, who are going through it, they need to understand that God is also teaching them a lesson of how not to be,
Right.
about
Exactly.
not to be. And I think we need to all take note of that. All of us, if you haven't been a leader, you will be at some degree. But I guess let's deal with what he talks about in the book. Let's talk about what he talks about here in chapter 9. Let's talk about some of the things to look for to find out if a person is disloyal. I know he said disloyal leader is one of the quotes here. A disloyal leader is more concerned about self-interest than the corporate purpose. How would you speak to that?
I would say, that's definitely the case, but it's very subtle. And a lot of times, and he mentions this in the book, but a lot of times people will hide their agenda, their own personal agenda, with loyal speak. He talks about that a lot. He
Mm-hmm.
said a lot of people have learned the language of loyalty. Take this one for the team, or we all win. This is a win-win situation. But you never really, you kind of have to peel back the layers of an onion, so to speak, to find out that when he's talking about win-win, it's all, most of the times it's their winning, right? Not really the corporate vision, or how they all can look good together, or really what the corporate vision is all about. And so you hear people. He gives you some characteristics, or some key terms to listen out for. That basically, we're in this together, or I want us to all look good, when it's just them that's looking good, right?
Right.
It's not really the corporate purpose that's ever the center or the basis or the foundation of any of their actions, but it's just the point of making that leader look good, for themselves.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
We have Jamal that just entered. He's getting himself together. It takes him a little while because his Android is slow. But
You knew it was coming.
right, you got to do it. What's coming here, then.
I thought he had enough.
But
Boy, I tell
I'm gonna say this, and Jamal, I want the reason why I was telling you, man. I text you, I was like, yo, you might want to be on this one for real, because we're talking about the leader. We're talking about loyalty and leadership, loyalty
okay.
and leadership, and how important it is for not just the people to be loyal, but more important that the leadership has a loyalty, it have not so much a vested interest, just a vested interest in the person, you as the person that's serving, but a leader should be just as loyal as they expect the people that's helping them to be loyal. But one of the things I was going to say, Sophia, is this.
Mhm.
The one sure way you can tell if a leader is really disloyal is when the stage is set and he has the opportunity to give shine to everybody on the team.
Mhm.
If they get on that stage, when they get in the accolades, the hand claps, when they're getting all the little hand claps, they're getting all the hand claps like that,
Uh-huh.
and because the job it was a job well done. The question is, when it's time for them to hit the podium and give their thanks, listen to the speech and the words they select when they're giving their speech of who they're going to thank. If it's all about them, oh wow, I thank y'all so much. I really worked hard at this. Uh, or if they just say, we did this or we did that. If it's a we mentality versus an I mentality, that's the difference between a loyal leader and one who is out just to make himself look good. Because like you said, the book talks about it. Leaders know how to disguise loyalty in verbiage.
Right.
Like you said, take it for the team. These are
Mhm.
things you learn in college. Things to say as a leader in corporate, they do it in corporate all the time. Take it for the team. If one fail, we all fail. That's not really true. If one fail, they get fired and you move on. That's usually what happens. That's the reality. But the truth of the fact of the matter is, when it comes down to leadership and looking out for disloyal leaders that's disguising themselves as loyal, Jamal, how would you say? What would you look for to make sure that the person that's leading you up, heading your ministry, heading your business, leading you on your job, how can you tell? What is a sure sign for you to know, you know what, this person is loyal to me, or you know what, this person is not loyal to me?
That's a great question. And I can give you an example of when I started working for the Department of Juvenile Justice. When my supervisor hired me, she would always, in her sentences, she would say, when you get to the next level, or she'll say, after you come back from training, you're going to have to deal with this, so I want you to be prepared. In her mind, her words were always seasoned with next level, when it's your turn,
I like that.
when you become a juvenile probation officer 2, when you become a 3. Her words always, I was never stagnant. The way she spoke to me was in future tense, which let me know that I'm not going to be in the same place next year or 2 years, that she's already looking beyond where I am in order to prepare me for the next level. That's usually how you can govern if someone is going to be loyal to you and if they have your best interests at heart. People that don't have your best interests at heart will never speak to you in future tense. They'll always talk about, number one, themselves, and they'll always talk about how better they can do something. The conversation will never be about you. That's the first and foremost lesson right there.
Yeah, man, that's strong. I think that's really, really, really good. We're gonna give him a ding dong. Um,
I appreciate that.
yeah, but I think that's strong because so what you're saying, Jamal, is a good loyal leader looks to looks to promote their team and not demote their team. Because
Yeah.
if you don't speak to my future, you're really just trying to keep me complacent. But a good leader is going to be looking forward to pushing their team to the next level. Like you said, your hiring manager was already telling you you're going to get promotion, you're going to get promoted time and time again, and she's basically saying in her own way because I'm going to put the energy and time in to help you get there.
Right.
I'm not going to just let you stand on your own 2 feet by yourself. We've all heard the old saying, no man is an island. But sometimes we feel like an island because when we reach out for the help, we think we're holding on to that loyalty, and we're not. What we're holding on to is falsehood, trickery, buffoonery, run them up, bamboozle, you know. So, but I think so important, man. You said one of the most powerful things that I wish you would put in this book. Maybe you put it in your book, but but the thing is, the thing is, you talked about how she spoke to your future. It all goes back, Sophia, to the language of a leader. Let's speak to that, the language of a leader concerning loyalty.
Well,
Sophia?
I think he hit it. I think he hit it. He nailed it. Basically speaking to your future and not to the current situation or how you're gonna help me win in this current situation. He used the example, and I like it because I've seen it so often. He used the example of a coach. Right, the coach is always telling the coach of a little league team is always telling the team, hey, I got these are my boys. I got their backs. I got their best interests at heart. But then the minute he sees a team member injured, he puts them in there anyway, right? Not taking into consideration his body or his future, whether or not he'll be able, to play in the future on an injured knee or what have you. Right, but that's a sign there to show you that the actions are not lining up with the words.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times people will have this grandiose speech, that we're for the team. I'm for my boys. Oh, I'm gonna look after them, mom. I'm gonna take care of them, dad. I'm gonna make sure they get in and play. But when it comes down to it, it's all about the win, right? For those coaches or those leaders who are not really looking out for the players, to them it's all about the win. And so they'll put your child in there injured, right? So the actions don't line up with the words, even when the words sound right.
Woo.
Yeah.
Oh, I just got a revelation. Watch this. This is God, I believe. I think I heard from the Lord. Let me tune in and get a little bit. Check this out.
You'll be able to hear it if it's on Apple. iPhone.
Man, look, gonna get you out of here. Um, so look, this is what the Lord just revealed to me. And I think I may have heard this before, but I know I heard from God. Check this out. A good leader, guys, a great leader, when the team is winning, he will praise everyone. He or she will praise everyone. But when the team loses, they will take the blame. That's a real strong characteristic of a good leader. Because the leader does not want to shine any bad light on those who they're loyal to, but they only want to show good. Now, behind closed doors, they may have a lot of rebuking going on and all of that, but a good leader will always stand in the front and say, you know what, that one's on me. That was on me. It's a sad thing when you have a quarterback that's supposed to be the leader of the team, throw an intercept and say, well, you know what, that wasn't my fault. He ran the wrong route. It's a different take on things. You should instead be saying, you know what, I should have been more careful. Or, I just didn't see it. Take the hit. A good leader has to have the maturity, has to have the character, has to have the strength in themselves enough to know, or in themselves enough rather, to say, you know what, I can take this hit, it's on me. Because listen, as a leader, we ask our people to take hits all the time. You ask them, in church, you ask them to drive long distances to come to your meetings. You ask them to come when you ain't gonna feed them anything. You call them, you call your people in the meeting, you rebuke them, and you never, at least for once, say, hey, I got your back though. You never let the meeting end on a high note. So it's just how you treat your people. So I think it's important that sometimes we accidentally take a hit. It's good for us to take a hit sometimes. I did want to deal with this. He says here, I might shoot right back to you, Jamal. He says, a disloyal leader feels no sorrow over the loss of someone significant and shows no appreciation for that person's past contributions. Yeah, speak to that, bro.
I really want to go back to what you were saying earlier, and I'm going to lead into that.
Go ahead.
And I have an example of what happens when a leader cares about the people that they're leading. It was Thanksgiving 2012. And of course, I was over the Ministerial Alliance. I was the chair. And I'd called, a person, and I said, hey, are you going to be in town for Thanksgiving to be able to do the scripture, the prayer? Because that's what the ministers do. The ministers do either the scripture or the prayer. They do devotion.
Right.
And what happened was when the night came, I thought the person had handled it. Well, you do know what church we attend, right?
Oh, yeah.
We were in the back in the green room, and the bishop was like, hey, wait a minute, that ain't right. Something going wrong. And I ran out, and I tried to figure out, man, so-and-so was supposed to do scripture and prayer. What happened? And then there was a whole big commotion, and church council came out, and, people that are on the church council, and they was trying to see where the ball had dropped. Well, at the end of the night, first assistant came to me and was like, hey, you need to talk to Bishop. Let him know, you're the leader of the Ministerial Alliance. So I'm going in the back. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking it's not my fault because I did my part. I told the person who was supposed to do it, they gave me a verbal confirmation that they would do it, and they didn't come through. So I'm in the back in the green room, and I'm speaking to the bishop, and I said, Bishop, I apologize on behalf of the Ministerial Alliance. We didn't do our part. It was totally my fault. And I took one for the team with that.
Yeah.
And of course, Bishop being who he is, he stretched his eyes. Oh, it was you? And surprised. And he's like, oh, well, we won't have to, something he said to me, but he said it quick in love, put his hat on, and was out the door. So the point I made with that was, with this individual, our relationship, I believe, is so great now. So great, because every time we in Covington by a couple of our friends, they're always there, and we're like brothers. So my point is, I could have got up there and said, no, that was Minister so-and-so's fault. That wasn't my fault, but the relationship that I have with this individual has blossomed and grown, and he's like, man, Elder Phillips really took one for the team. So when you care about the people that you lead, I cannot say that with more fervency than I'm already saying it. In order to be a great and effective leader, you got to care about the people that you're leading. And if you don't care about them, then you will always, when you misuse something, it's called abuse. If I take a butter knife and try to put my ceiling fan together, the very name itself says it is a butter knife. Now, can I use it? And we've done that, been lazy, got a butter knife, screw something together, but that's not the purpose of it. That's abuse, because you wouldn't take a screwdriver and cut your butter.
Right.
Everything has its purpose. And when you misuse someone in their purpose, it's abuse. And people walk away from the church. They walk away from the job. They walk away from the organization only because the leader didn't take the responsibility of knowing how to carefully orchestrate the lives of the gifts of the people that he was in charge of. And we do more damage when we don't know, when we don't read the instructions on how to handle people. Another thing is this, and I'll shut up. You never openly rebuke somebody in front of everybody else. You take that person to the side, you say, hey man, you messed up. What you do is, whenever they do something great, you do that before the masses. But whenever they mess up, you take them privately to the side. In the church, we have it backwards. We want to tell people on the fly, going out the door, hey, great job, and going on. But then when they do something wrong, it's in front of the whole organization, and you belittle them and embarrass them. That person will not be with you long, because you've abused the gift versus acknowledging the gift and putting the gift in its proper place.
Right. Let me add some more texture, to what you just said. I agree with when you rebuke somebody or reprimand them, it should be done in the corporate world. In the corporate world, this is how it goes. If you do something wrong, you're taken to the back to our office, and in that office, you're dealt with. You're dealt with. There's conversations that I had. Now, in the corporate world, if you do something foolish, in front of the masses. Now, I'm raised from the old school of thought. I know y'all old school like me. Where you mess up at is where you get messed up at. You you want to act a fool in the streets. That's where you're gonna get it. When I was coming up, if I act a fool in the store, that's why I got my whip in the store.
Right.
Because first of all, you're not gonna have me. My mom and dad was like, you ain't gonna have me looking like I don't raise my children. So
Right.
if you're gonna act a fool in the street, hey, we two can play at the game. But I think the only time rebuke or open rebuke is warranted is in situations. I'll give a prime example. Years ago, Bishop was preaching, and somebody got up and it was making noise. Bishop ignored it. Security handled it. The person got up a few minutes later, did the same thing. Bishop ignored it. Security handled it again. Seemed like the person was calm. But see that third time? Nah. Open rebuke. And that person didn't get back up after that. I think you have to use wisdom. You have to use tact as to how you reprimand your people. As it relates to what I was saying, about a leader having no sorrow for the loss of someone, it's a sad thing when you hear a leader say, I'm glad they're gone. And the person that they're referring to, at some point in time, there was a major contributor to the organization. It's a way to say things. You still have to say everything with integrity and with tact and with respect, because nobody wants to feel like they've been abused or abused. I think leadership is very important that they use the right verbiage when it comes down. Times come in our lives, even as leaders, where you have to let people go, you have to fire them because they're not following the vision or things of that nature. If that's the case, what you say and how you say it is all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. So not to kind of hang and linger on this too long, I definitely want to move over to my favorite part, which is chapter 10. Um, but I want you, Sophia, to close out with this particular chapter. I want you to talk about just for a second, because I know you're gonna articulate this extremely well. The danger of having a disloyal leader. The major danger.
Yeah, I think the major danger that was that he pointed out in having a disloyal leader is the hurt that comes along with it, and how having a disloyal leader can lead to your own demise. He used the um he used the story of David and Uriah,
Mm-hmm.
the Hittite. Yeah, throughout the entire story, and to me, that whole story just took on a new meaning for me, because even though we've read the story of David and Bathsheba so many times, we never focus on his interaction with Uriah. And even though I had seen Uriah's name in the list of David's mighty men, it never hit me how close Uriah was to David. For him to be disloyal to Uriah and to sleep with his wife. Part of
Right,
this
bro.
chapter was he said that the letter that was sent to the captain, of the army, that where that they were supposed to put Uriah on the front lines and then step away, and leave him out there.
Wow.
David gave that letter to Uriah, to deliver. And
Wow.
so he was so unaware of David's disloyalty to him that he delivered the letter that killed him, that got him killed.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so, he said the major thing, the major danger, if you will, of not recognizing a disloyal leader is that you never know when they are leading you to your own demise.
Woo.
Right? And so
That's
that's the thing. That's why it was so important to learn these characteristics, about disloyal leaders. They want what they want. They don't care about the people who have been loyal to them in the past.
right.
All these things, you have to recognize that, so you can be aware and on your guard, and prayerful about the orders that you're being given, because just like Uriah, you could be, delivering your own death warrant.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that I know I want to move on from this, but that is powerful. Uriah carried the letter that killed him. Wow. I mean, all because he did not recognize a disloyal leader. So I'm gonna say this: if once you recognize your leader is disloyal, then you know what to look out for. You know, okay, I can't put my full trust in this person because, okay, I'm not gonna carry my own letter to my own demise. That's not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna read that joint before I even go on, because I'm just not gonna do that. That's just, man, that's powerful. That is so powerful. I want to get into the next section, chapter 10, changing places, the law of constructive transition. I don't know about you guys, um, but I read some of this twice because we talked about this a lot in past meetings we had on our chats, but we always talk about. We usually end up saying, okay, well, somebody's with you for long. Now, let me give some context to what we're all getting ready to talk about. We're only talking about people that we've already deemed as trustworthy, people that we've all. That's like Jamal. If Jamal told me God gave him a vision about something, Jamal and I already are in a covenant relationship. We're covenant brothers. So we're already way past the point of me trying to see if I can, how far I can trust him. I don't have no restraints when it comes down to him, and either him to me, because we're past that point. So we're talking about people who are already in relationships that have already been proven to uh, one another. You already know this. This person got me for real. We good. So that's the context. I don't want anybody who's watching this video to think we're just talking about any old body. We're not. We're talking about that person that has proven to be an excellent friend that has your best interest at heart. Right on cue, like your dog's best friend. You know? So, we're talking about that type of person. With that being said, most of the times when we're talking on our chats, we always talk about, I know I'm the one big advocate of everybody's always an option. I don't care who you are, you're always an option. But this is that time where you got that person, you know what? This person is definitely not an option. They've been in my life long enough to the point where I know that shifts and rifts may come, but shifts and rifts doesn't mean breakups and doesn't mean we have to go our separate ways in this case. I'll start off by saying this, and I'm gonna go to Jamal, and then you, Sophia. You could pick it back right off the top of him. There are moments in our life when your best relationships can become your biggest problems. Sometimes, in order to move forward with God, you must change the way you relate to certain people in your life. This does not mean ending the relationship. It simply means, watch this word, guys, restructuring it in a healthy, loving way so you can continue to be friends and associates with a certain person with different dynamics than you had before. Jamal, I'm gonna go to you. I'm gonna come right to you, Sophia. You can pick it back.
I think when you used the quote, you said there are moments in life when your best relationships become your biggest problems. The only way for me, and I'm speaking of me, that I could see one of my best relationships becoming my biggest problems, if I've gone to a plateau that the person I'm in the relationship has not gone. Usually, the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they are in agreement?
Right.
If my value system has changed, or I have matured in God so much to a level that is beyond where you are, then we have no other choice. We're going to have problems because how I believe now in my mature moment, you're not there. So now you have conflict. So you're thinking, man, he acting funny. Oh, she acting funny. It's not that they're acting funny, but the older you get or the more mature you get in God, the less drama you seek in your life. At one level, you could be like, man, I know this is drama, but I got the energy to deal with it. The more mature you become in God, the less tolerant you are for drama, for foolishness, because where you're going, you can't have drama baggage. You can't have foolishness baggage. Some things you have to let go. There are certain weights that you have to drop off that you can't take into your destiny. So when your best relationships, man, this was my dog, my boy, my friend, this was my girl. But for some reason or other, we drifted apart, not because I wanted to, or not because I felt that I was better than, but some things I was willing to let go in order to be more mature in God. And if that person is not willing to go there, then rifts and problems can begin.
Yeah, Sophia.
Yeah, one of the things that I guess struck a chord with me is when he said, sometimes God will test you, test your love and trust for Him by allowing someone important to you to hold you or not support you in what He's told you to do. That
Wow.
God will use that as a test. And I thought about that, and I'm like, what, that's so true, because a lot of times we wrestle, between someone who over the course of time has been there, right? They've been there through thick and thin, and and even the example that he used, the pastor, that was his friend that he used in his
Mentor, right?
examples. He said, yeah, he said that they've been friends for years, right? They've been friends for years. And sometimes it's hard when someone who knows you, knows your heart for God, and knows that you've been praying and you've been seeking God on certain decisions. All of a sudden, they come out and they say, you know what, I don't support this, or you're making a bad move,
Right.
right? And then you have to choose between whether or not you really heard God, or whether or not you missed him, right? And a lot of times when it's somebody you trust, it'll feel like you've missed God, because they all of a sudden they're disagreeing with you. And I think one of the things that he talks about here is that you're not necessarily cutting that person off and no longer being in a relationship with them, but instead you're just adjusting the relationship, so that the position or the authority or the weight that they carried in the relationship before is no longer the same. And I think that's the thing that we must kind of stick with most. That it's not that you're cutting people off, but you're making a conscious decision to adjust the influence that they have in your life at that time, and especially over the decisions you must make for God, right? So that you can move forward with what God has told you to do. So
Right.
you're not cutting them off, but you're just adjusting the role and the
Right.
influence they have over you.
Right. And I'm going to bring clarity just for everybody, for those who are watching, whatever. In this particular chapter, he's not really talking about disconnecting from people who disagree with you after a long period of time of your connection being strong. He's really dealing with this person is a valued asset in your life, and the disagreement that you have or that they have with you is because they care about you. And they are disagreeing because they can't see the vision that God has given you for that decision that you're making for that moment. Um, for me, I would say this: there was times in my life where uh, uh, I had a good friend of mine and prayer partner of mine, and he started his own church. I asked him, I said, "Are you sure this is what God is telling you?" I said, "Man, because I don't think that." I said, the way that we were raised in church, and not only that, we both talked about this, that we knew that when we were ready, that God would touch the heart of the pastor to send us out. That's just something we've agreed on. That was one of our core values that we agreed upon as friends when we were building our relationship. So watch what happens in this relationship, and I know I'm not gonna belabor the point. He says to me, he said, "But man, God told me to do this." Now, I'm his boy. We like brothers. We tight. I can't explain to you how tight and how close we were, or how close we are. And so he held what I was saying to his heart. But watch this. Because he said God said, I said, okay, bro, if you saying God said it, I'm praying for you. I'm believing God is you're gonna have an awesome church. You know it's gonna be a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice. Don't give up, don't quit, keep pushing. So he knew I was against it, but he also knew I was gonna support him regardless. Now, long story short, he did have to shut the church down. But that was after what, 2 years, 3 years of trying to make it work. And he realized later, he's like, man, Molly, I should have really, wish I'd have listened. I really thought I heard from God. And my job then was not to say, man, I told you so. My job then was to say what I told him. I said, man, you still gonna pastor because that's the anointing that's on your life. Take that as a lesson. You learned a lot of lessons. Now you got 500 sermons that you didn't really preach. You preached to only a few people. Now you already, so when your church starts, you got sermons already ready. We make a joke of it, but my job then was to encourage him. My job then was to maintain my loyalty and my friendship. We didn't disconnect. He didn't cut me off because I disagreed with him. It wasn't an argument. It was a conversation. Like Jamal, I'm always using Jamal because the people can watching this live who hit his back and see him right there. But we are close friends. We are like super, super close. My brother for real. If he told me something that, and God told me something different, what he's saying, all he can do, he might feel strong about it. But what he talks about in the book is, he says sometimes the people close to you, when he talks about they could be your biggest problem, not because they're causing an issue for you in the sense of something negative, they could be your biggest roadblock because I trust Jamal's judgment that much that if he says, bro, I don't know if that's going to work, that may not be a good idea. You know, I've been down that road too. Because I hold him and I value his opinion, his experiences to high regard, then I might confuse his recommendations over what I know God is telling me. So that's how they can become a problem. What I would say to the people is, if you have somebody in your life that's really trying to push you to the right direction, no matter how adamant they are, if you really heard from God, go with it. And when God shows himself strong, that friend will see it later. But he talks about, Sophia, like you mentioned, restructuring the relationship. If Jamal had a vision, God told him to do something, hey, move to Albuquerque. I'm like, no, man, that ain't what God's saying. You ought to be stay in Atlanta or move to Colorado or move to New York or move wherever. Like, nah, man, God told me to move to Albuquerque. Man, but you don't know about Albuquerque. But he said, man, just go. That's what I got to do. I got to go to Albuquerque. So I'm dead set against. Every day I'm talking to him, man, you shouldn't go. I'm telling you, don't do it. You don't even know nobody. Don't do it. At that moment, he knows I'm a valued asset in his life. It's not his position. It's really not wise for him to cut me off, but it's wise for him to understand that, hey, he just don't know. He can't see what I see. Jamal gets to Albuquerque and become a multi-billionaire, and he give me $500 million. So now we both rich. We living a good life, all because he followed God, and I was willing to still stick to my guns. He saw my loyalty. I wasn't trying to stop him or hate him. What I was trying to do is show him, hey, listen, my interest was I didn't want him to get hurt. I didn't want him to go to Albuquerque and have nowhere to stay and living with chickens and turkeys. That's why I didn't want him to go to Albuquerque. It was my personal feeling. I didn't want him to go because, oh, if you go, he's going to do better than me. No, that's the wrong mentality. And that's why we have to look and make sure that, hey, if this person you selected to be in your life, know that they're not trying to hurt you. Van Moody mentions it in his book. He says that his mentor didn't see the vision that God had given him. And then when he invites him back to preach in the vision, after God made provision for it, he's like, man, I'm sorry. These are the words he used, Sophia, and I want you to speak on this, Jamal. He says, I just didn't see it in that time. I just didn't see it. He said, I didn't see what you saw, but I'm glad you believed strong enough in your God that he was able to manifest what he promised you. So it's not about disconnecting friendships because they disagree with you, but it's about understanding, okay, this is just temporary. Let me reposition them for right now until I get. Jesus did it with Peter. One moment he tell him, you the rock. This the rock. Your name is Peter. And this the rock I'm gonna build my church. And then what? A few verses over, he says, he rebukes him and said, Satan, get behind me. All in the same conversation. Jesus didn't say, Peter, get behind me. He said, Satan, I rebuke you, get behind me. He said, but while I'm rebuking Satan, Peter, I'm going to reposition you until I get to the place where you can see what I've been telling you all this time, and then I'll put you back closer to me. But I'm not going to leave you stranded. I'm going to keep you near, but I just need you to be somewhere else right now until I go through what I got to go through. Jamal.
There's a story in the Bible. Elisha had a servant, and the army had surrounded them. They were in the valley, and the army was above on the mountaintop. And the servant ran in and told Elisha, we're surrounded, we're surrounded. He said, go look again. Don't let your eyes deceive you. So he went back out, and he saw the army. He went back into the house by Elisha. Now Elisha is chilling. He ain't tripped out about nothing. And the servant is like frantic. He's like, man, the army surround us. we're in trouble. Elisha says, God, open his eyes that he may see. He went back
Wow.
and he told, Elisha said, they that are with us are more than they that are against us. When he went back out there the third time, he looked and he saw the angels of hosts surrounded the army. The army was up, but so was the angel of the Lord. So even though the servant couldn't see it at the time, Elisha was able to tell him, hey, God needs to open his eyes. And sometimes as mentors, and sometimes we can't allow other people's experience to become our own.
That's
And I
good,
think
man.
that's what people do. It's like, man, I remember when I started my church, and man, I just had 10 people, and I ain't get my 5,000 members until 20 years later. That's a nice testimony. God may want to do something different with me. If I obey him, I may walk outside, start a church next week, and 5,000 people show up then. Why is it not, why can't it happen? It happened when Peter opened his mouth and 3,000 was added to the church.
Yeah.
So it's another thing I would do, not allow other people's experiences to be ours. That's the only reason why. It was out of care and concern, like you said. You didn't want me to go out there to Albuquerque and be lost and be sleeping with chickens and doing whatever. So out of your heart, it was concern. But then your concern, that's what, just like you just said, that's what Peter said. Oh no, Jesus, you can't go to Jerusalem. They're going to kill you there. He said, get behind me. Because Jesus knew his purpose.
Hey,
And what was a stepping stone in one verse became a stumbling block in the next.
Right. I think, Sophia, you want to speak to that?
No, I mean, he's exactly right. You know what the thing is, and that's why he called it constructive transition, right? Because you
Right.
realize that these people still have your best interest in heart. They still love you. They still care, right?
Right.
But it's just that you have to reposition them temporarily, right? And understand that you can always restore them. And I think somewhere he says that restoration is always an option, right? You can
Right.
always restore them back to that position of influence, back to that position of value, once you've gone into that vision a little bit more and you've done what God told you to do. But just understand that just because they can't see and understand where you are, and just because, their words may be a stumbling block right now, doesn't mean that they don't care about you. And it doesn't mean that that relationship is tarnished or changed forever, right? You can always restore them back to that position once you've done what God told you to do.
Right. I would say this. Let's be proactive as friends and as people. If we're in a relationship with somebody that in fact we're that close to. After I read this, I repositioned my thinking. I started to say, what I'm gonna do instead of trying to persuade them out of it. Ask them fact-finding questions. Ask them questions such as, "Hey, have you talked to God? Have you prayed about it? Have you fasted about it? How do you know? What confirmation do you have?" These are things that I think that if I'm a real good friend, instead of me assuming that this isn't God for them, let me ask the question, "Hey, have you prayed about it? What did God say? All right, when you plan on making this decision, let's fast together." Um, Invest yourself into that vision, to what they feel God has told them. And while they're there, and while you're praying, and while you're fasting, and while you're praying for them, ask God to show you. Say, "God, listen, show me if I'm wrong. But if I'm right, show them what changes they need to make." So I think that's the core value. I think that's one of the most important parts of the friendships. When I'm reading this now, I'm looking at it like, how can we avoid that? You know, the friction. Not some in every relationship you're gonna have some sense of friction. It's just what it is. It's called growing pains. It's what it is. You're gonna grow. You're gonna get to the next level. And a lot of times, the vehicle or the door to the next level is always a problem. So, I can honestly say Jamal and I agree on a lot of stuff, but there's some things we disagree on. But it's never an argument. It's just a disagreement. You know, we move past it, and that's it. So, let me help this little girl. So that's pretty much my particular perspective on it, on that portion. I want to kind of, because the time is kind of running nigh on us, but I want to say this. He says here, I really want to get into don't exhale too soon, how Peter takes the back seat, man. But this is one of the strongest quotes, Sophia and Jamal, that I thought was just crazy. Many times when God begins to lead you in a particular direction, He has been preparing you for a change for quite some time. Um, I think I think for me, what I would do going forward, if I know God is about to transition me somewhere, I'm gonna be responsible to the person who is been responsible to me and say, listen, bro, or if it's my wife, tell my wife and say, listen, God is shifting something. I'm not quite sure what it is right now, but I know He's preparing me for something different or something greater. That way, when you share the vision with that person, and again, people who are watching, we're only talking about people who are already in your circle, who have proven and been tested and tried and true. Um, that way, when you share it, not only does it not come as a shock, they have been praying with you along the way, and now you don't feel that can possibly, it doesn't always work, but it can possibly lighten the blow of them being a distraction to what God is sharing with you. Because what I found out is God will tell you some crazy stuff, and because it's crazy, it'd be hard for anybody to really be like, hey, uh, that probably not God. That's a little too far fetched, you know. But shoot, how many times in the Bible, Jamal, you're a scholar and a gentleman, how many times in the Bible where you've seen uh, God tell somebody to go to another land and I'm gonna prepare some stuff for you when you get to that land, with them not having any foreknowledge about the land they're going to. He did it with Moses. He did it. You gonna tell a man build the boat and it's gonna rain? Now it hadn't rained in I don't know how long. It's gonna rain, killer. How am I supposed to believe that? But that's what faith is all about. And sometimes God will tell you to build a boat when there's no water. He will tell you to prepare for a storm when there's no sign of rain, and you just have to know that it's God. The one thing I will say, if the rain didn't come and he just built the boat, so what? Now you got a boat that he didn't have before. It's still a win-win situation. So I think we just have to be supportive of those who we call close friends. Um, Still be that voice for them when you know that they're going in the wrong direction. But if they disagree with you, pray with them, pray for them, and don't make an argument. Don't do anything to cost or risk losing your friendship because you're that adamant about what you feel is right, and you could be wrong. And especially if it's a God connection, both of you are saved, love the Lord, and moving in the right direction. I'm gonna kind of open the floor for closing remarks. It's what 10:09 out there, so I'll take the next 5 minutes to close up. I want to let Sophia, ladies first, kind of close out and give just your synopsis of chapter 10 and how you feel about just what has this meant to you, this journey of going through this book, The People Factor. Let's talk about that just for a second.
Mhm. It's definitely allowed me to take a closer look at me and how I deal with different relationships. How I assess them and basically look at how I work. So, I say it's been a big help. It's been a big benefit. One thing about this chapter in particular is that, I'm constantly reminded that the transition that we talk about is to be constructive. Right?
Yes.
It's always with
Yes.
gentleness and compassion, that you're transitioning relationships from one state to another. So I'm constantly reassessing me, making sure, am I being gentle? Am I being compassionate? When I think about different relationships and how they must transition in order for me to move forward.
Yeah, I think that's real good. The book starts out with saying, "Look at you first." As you read this book, he says this in the beginning chapters. As you read this, continue to look at you, check yourself out, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. I think that's awesome that you're continuing to do that and that you're changing. And I pray that the people that's having interactions with us can see that there's been some changes because of from reading this book, studying God's word, and really trying to pursue being better. I know Jamal, he got us on mute. Either that or his phone ain't working. Um, but yeah, I want you to kind of speak. I want you. There you go. There you go. There you go. I want you to speak to how this book has really kind of transformed your life and what it's meant to you thus far.
Yeah, I had put it on mute because my phone is echoing.
Oh, well, Android, you should expect. Go ahead.
But the words that I say are so nice, I gotta hear them, you know. So that's how that goes. I led you into that. Anyway, I think for me, for where I'm going, this book has been transformative to show me that in the next part of this journey called life for me, I need to know how to handle these next level relationships. He says something in the book about this friend and friend social media life. You can friend somebody in a millisecond, but some relationships have come to grow you, and some have come to sharpen. And we have to know the difference between somebody that's here to help me grow and somebody's here that's help me to be a tool used in the hand.
Right.
It has shown me how to pick certain relationships in order to be the most effective.
Yeah, I think it's done the exact same for me on every front, man. You and Sophia. Again, man, my prayer for everybody who's watching this video, who's watched all the videos before, if you haven't, this is the first one you've seen, man, jump back, check out these videos. We're not we're really just people who love the Lord and really just trying our best to get to the next level in our walk with Christ. That's bottom line. That's what this group is about. That's all we're about, man. And I pray that the people that you are encountering, if you're following along with the book, if you read the book, if you're reading the book, I pray that there is a significant change in your life that people notice, and that because of the changes, you're having a better life today than you did prior to starting this journey. And so I pray that everybody continues to read continually. Next week we'll be dealing with what is the date next week? Is that next week is what?
29th.
Yeah, so we'll be on next week. Next Monday we'll be dealing with part 2, chapter 11 and 12. We're talking about you can't take him with you, knowing when and how to end an unhealthy relationship. We'll say that again. You can't take them with you, knowing when and how to end an unhealthy relationship. That's chapter 11. Chapter 12 is going to be talking about kiss Oprah goodbye, recognizing who is in your life for the long term. Wow. Now, if y'all missed that, it's your fault, because I already know that's going to be a good conversation. I'm even trying to have some additional faces on this video chat, this live hangout, see if we can persuade Autumn Kennedy and Denise Chambers to jump on here and have a little fun. I'm going to have to give them some candy or cookie or something to get them on this next one, because I guarantee you this next Monday is going to be action-packed. Read this week. I know Christmas is coming. Turn the chicken away for a moment and read the book. Let's stay up to date. Let's do what it is we need to do so we can finish this book. We only have about 2 more chapters after that, and I believe we're done. So I appreciate you guys. I want to give a special shout out and thanks to Jamal and Sophia. My ride or die, they're always here. And for all those who faithfully watch, we bless God for you all. And I pray that something that we say is enriching your life and changing your life and helping you get to the next level. I know it's doing it for us, and my prayer is that it does the same for you. Merry Christmas to everybody, and be safe out there. It's not about you this Christmas. So if you didn't get a gift, it's all good. The question is, did you give one? So if you didn't give one, hit me up on Facebook. I'll tell you where to send it. All right. So love y'all. Talk to you later. Peace out. Yeah.